What if the pain you're feeling isn't from life, but from the stories you keep telling yourself? You try to stay strong, you keep pushing, you silence your doubts, but deep down, something still feels off. No matter how much success you chase, how much approval you seek, how much control you try to hold, there's still a quiet war inside. You get angry and don't know why. You overthink everything and end up doing nothing. You carry a weight that isn't yours, and you call it strength. But what if real strength comes from letting go of what's been holding you back? The Stoics believed that freedom doesn't come from conquering the world, but from conquering yourself. And that begins with facing 10 uncomfortable truths most people spend a lifetime avoiding. In this video, we'll uncover them, one by one. Not to judge you, but to free you. Because you're not broken, you're just stuck in patterns that no longer serve you. And the good news? You can unlearn them, starting today. You're not alone in this. Every man who's ever struggled with anger, control, pride, or pain has walked this same path. But the ones who changed didn't wait for life to fix itself. They did the inner work. So if you're ready to break free from the lies that keep you small, stay with me. This isn't self-help fluff. It's Stoic fire, and it just might change the way you live. Like this video, subscribe for more, and share it with someone who needs to hear this today. 1. Anger keeps you trapped in the past. You walk into a room and the energy shifts. No words, just a glance, and suddenly your chest tightens. Not because of what was said, but because of what still lives inside you. A memory, a wound, a resentment you never really let go of. You smile politely, but your mind is already rehearsing the old argument, rewriting the past in ways that only make it heavier. That's how anger works. It doesn't shout, it simmers. Quiet, constant, exhausting. Anger disguises itself as strength. It gives the illusion of control. You feel powerful in the moment, fueled by the idea that you were wronged and you must not forget. But the truth is, holding on to anger is like dragging a burning chain. It doesn't hurt the person who left. It scorches the one who carries it. What once felt like a shield becomes a prison. You're not defending your dignity. You're guarding your pain. We often confuse anger with clarity. But anger doesn't bring clarity. It brings distortion. You don't see the moment as it is. You see it through the lens of what you think should have happened. And in doing so, you miss what's actually in front of you. A conversation that could have been healing. A connection that could have been repaired. A moment of peace that could have been yours. But you chose to relive the fight instead of releasing it. Stoicism doesn't deny anger. It doesn't ask you to pretend you're not hurt. It invites you to look deeper, to ask, what is this anger protecting? And what would happen if I let it go? Epictetus once said, it's not things that disturb us, but our judgment about things. When you judge someone's actions as a personal attack, you carry that moment far beyond its expiration date. You become loyal to a version of yourself that no longer exists, wounded, reactive, and on edge. Think about the times you've held on to anger. Maybe it was with your brother, who said something years ago that you never forgot. Maybe it was a manager who overlooked you, a friend who betrayed your trust. You told yourself you forgave, but deep down, you stored it. You carried it into every interaction that came after, even the ones that didn't deserve it. That's the true cost. Anger doesn't stay in one place. It spreads into how you speak, how you listen, how you lead, how you love. Now ask yourself, what have you been carrying that isn't yours to hold anymore? What is still burning in your hands long after the fire should have gone out? To break free, you don't need to confront them. You need to confront yourself. Sit with the anger, not to feed it, but to understand it. Trace it back to the expectation that was broken. Realize that most anger is born from a story you wrote in your mind. A story where things were supposed to go a certain way, and they didn't. The moment you accept that reality owes you nothing, anger begins to loosen its grip. This isn't weakness. It's clarity. Its power is redirected. So the next time anger rises, pause. Don't react. Don't rehearse the insult again. Instead, ask, what am I really holding on to? And what would I gain if I released it? Let your silence speak louder than your rage. Let your calm disarm what your words never could. You don't need to win the past. You need to walk free from it. Try this. Before you go to sleep tonight, Think of one person you're still angry with. Write their name on paper. Then write the words, "I no longer need this." Tear it up. It's a simple act, but it breaks a powerful cycle. Not because it fixes the past, but because it frees the present. 2. You're chasing what you can't control. The harder you grip the steering wheel, the more exhausted you feel. Not because you're moving, but because nothing is turning the way you want. You plan, you calculate, you try to stay ahead of every outcome. But despite all your effort, people still disappoint you. Results still fall short. The world still moves according to its own rhythm, not yours. And underneath it all is a quiet panic. The fear that if you don't stay on top of everything, it will all fall apart. Control feels safe, predictable. It gives the illusion that if you try hard enough, think long enough, prepare well enough, you can shape life to your design. But real life doesn't work that way. You can't control other people's opinions. You can't force someone to respect you. You can't guarantee outcomes, no matter how perfectly you plan. The pursuit of control drains your focus from where it actually matters: your own thoughts, your own choices, your own reactions. In a quiet office, a man refreshes his email every 2 minutes, waiting for a reply that never comes. He replays the meeting from earlier in his head, wondering if he said too much or too little. He imagines what they're thinking, how they're judging him. What he doesn't realize is that every minute spent analyzing someone else's silence is a minute lost from his own presence. The energy he could have used to improve his next step is wasted on trying to rewrite something he was never meant to author. Stoicism doesn't promise to help you control more. It teaches you where your control ends and where your power begins. Epictetus put it simply: some things are up to us, and some things are not. When you understand this, you stop trying to force the wind and start adjusting your sails. You stop demanding that people act a certain way and start deciding who you want to be, regardless of how they show up. That shift changes everything. You go from reacting to responding, from chasing to choosing. We've been taught to measure our success by results: the job offer, the recognition, the applause. But Stoicism asks a different question. Did you act with integrity? Did you stay aligned with your values? Did you respond with intention, even when things didn't go your way? That's where peace comes from, not from outcomes, but from ownership. The moment you stop outsourcing your emotional state to the behavior of others, you begin to reclaim your life. Next time you feel anxiety rise because something is out of your control, pause, breathe. Ask yourself, what part of this can I actually influence right now? Not tomorrow, not later, now. Then act from that place, however small it may seem. Shift your focus from reaction to response, from managing others to mastering yourself. You don't need to control the whole board. You only need to move your piece with clarity. Try this. When you catch yourself spiraling, waiting for a call, obsessing over someone's silence, refreshing a screen, step away. Write down 3 actions you can take within the next hour that align with your values. Then do one, not because it will fix everything, but because it brings your energy back to where it belongs. Control is not power. Presence is. And your presence begins the moment you stop chasing what was never yours to hold. 3. Pride blocks your growth. You don't notice it at first. Pride wears many masks. It sounds like confidence. It moves with strength. It feels like protection. But if you look closely, it's not armor. It's a wall. A silent refusal to admit you might be wrong. A quiet resistance to growth, because growth would mean facing something uncomfortable, that you don't know everything and never did. Pride is clever. It convinces you to speak when you should listen. It makes you defend mistakes instead of learning from them. It pushes you to prove something that no one even asked for. And slowly, without realizing it, you begin to mistake stubbornness for clarity. You don't hear correction as help. You hear it as a threat. And what could have made you better instead makes you bitter. In the workplace, it shows up when a colleague offers feedback, and you shut down thinking they don't understand what you're dealing with. In your relationships, it shows when someone points out how you made them feel, and instead of hearing them, you feel the need to defend your intention. Pride makes it impossible to grow because it makes everything personal. You stop learning, you stop adjusting, you dig in. Stoicism doesn't shame you for having pride. but it does challenge what you're using it for. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If someone is able to show me that what I think or do is not right, I will happily change, for I seek the truth." That is humility, not weakness, not defeat. The willingness to grow louder than the desire to be right. Many people wear pride like a badge of honor. They think it keeps them strong. But the Stoics see something else. It's often just fear in disguise. Fear of being seen as less, fear of not being enough, fear of looking small. So instead of risking vulnerability, they choose control. They hold tight to their version of the story and ignore everything that contradicts it. But growth doesn't happen where you're safe. It happens where you're open. When you let go of being right, you make space for being real. You allow yourself to listen deeply, to shift your perspective, to take a step back. Not because you failed, but because you want to move forward with more clarity. Pride says, "I already know." Humility asks, "What am I missing?" When you operate from pride, you stay in cycles. Same conversations, same results, same disappointments. But when you lead with humility, you evolve. You start to see feedback as information, not an insult. You stop defending your ego and start protecting your values. Try this. The next time someone disagrees with you, pause. Don't reply. Just breathe and ask yourself quietly, is there something true in what they're saying? Even if only 1% of their words reflect something you hadn't seen, let that 1% in. Let it work. Let it nudge you out of your blind spot. You don't lose anything by softening your stance. In fact, you gain something far more lasting, wisdom. And with it, the kind of calm that can't be shaken by critique, because you're no longer trying to be perfect. You're trying to be honest. You're trying to become. Pride will keep you stuck in the version of yourself that feels safest. But humility will take you places pride never could. Not because it's louder, but because it listens. And sometimes listening is the most powerful thing you can do. Let that silence open a new door. Let that pause create a shift. Growth begins when you stop proving and start learning again. 4. Overthinking is killing your peace. You replay the same moment in your head 100 times, hoping the next replay will give you peace. But it doesn't. It never does. The more you analyze, the more you spiral. You convince yourself that one more thought, one more angle, one more what if will finally make things clear. But clarity doesn't come. Only exhaustion. Only the dull ache of a mind that won't rest. Overthinking feels responsible, smart, careful. It disguises itself as preparation. But it's not preparation. It's paralysis. You're not moving forward. You're stuck in a loop that feeds on fear. Fear of making the wrong choice, fear of regret, fear of not being in control. And yet, the more you think, the less you act. The more you think, the less you trust yourself. In a quiet kitchen, a man stands staring at his phone. A simple message sits on the screen, unanswered. He's typed and erased a reply 5 times. He's rehearsed the conversation in his mind, imagined her reaction, predicted every possible outcome. But he still doesn't send the message, because what he's waiting for isn't the right words. It's certainty. And certainty never comes. Stoicism teaches that peace isn't found in perfect knowledge. It's found in decisive action. You don't think your way into clarity. You act your way into it. Seneca once wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." When you think too much, you live in a world that doesn't exist. A world built on fear, assumptions, and scenarios that may never happen. And while your mind is busy solving problems that don't exist yet, your real life is slipping through your fingers. The problem isn't what you think. The problem is that you don't stop. You don't step back. You don't give your nervous system the space to reset. You confuse analysis with wisdom, hesitation with safety. But what you're really doing is delaying your life. Avoiding discomfort by choosing indecision. Avoiding movement by drowning in mental noise. The Stoic mindset invites you to act from values, not from emotions. To trust that even if things go wrong, you will still be able to respond with strength. The goal is not to never make mistakes. The goal is to stop fearing them so much that you do nothing. The longer you wait for the perfect moment, the further you drift from the present one. So how do you break the cycle? You begin small. You notice the loop. You name it. You breathe. And then you choose. You decide. Not based on fear, but on who you want to be. You accept that mistakes may come, that not every outcome is yours to control, but your action that's always within reach. And it's action that grounds you, that silences the noise, that pulls you out of your head and back into your life. Try this. The next time your mind starts spinning, stop what you're doing. Place both feet flat on the ground. Inhale deeply. Ask yourself one question: what matters most to me right now? Then take one small step toward it. Not because you figured it all out, but because you're tired of waiting to start. Overthinking won't protect you. It only postpones the life you're meant to live. Let go of the illusion that certainty is coming. It's not, but presence is. And presence begins when the mind quiets and the will acts. You don't need more thoughts, you need more trust. Not in the world, in yourself. 5. Pain comes from perception, not life itself. A message left on read, a door closed without a word, a missed promotion you thought was already yours. The mind reacts before you even process the moment. Suddenly, rejection, humiliation, injustice. But what if the sting isn't in what happened, but in what you told yourself it meant? Pain begins with meaning, not with the event, but with the story. You interpret a silence as disrespect, a delay as proof you're not valued, no as a failure of your worth. But the truth is often simpler and far less dramatic. Still, your mind doesn't like simplicity. It fills the silence, it completes the sentence, it ties every minor moment to a bigger narrative. And the more painful that narrative, the harder it is to let go. In the parking lot outside his office, a man sits in his car long after his shift has ended. A coworker was short with him earlier, distracted. The man replays the interaction again and again. Was it a slight? Did he offend? Did they talk about him behind his back? His chest tightens. His hands grip the steering wheel. But the reality is, the coworker had just received bad news. It had nothing to do with him. Still, perception turned a passing moment into a wound. Stoicism teaches that events are neutral. Only your judgment gives them shape. Epictetus said, "Men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them." This doesn't mean you're weak for feeling hurt. It means you're powerful enough to question the hurt. To ask, what am I adding to this moment that wasn't there to begin with? Pain is real, but suffering often comes from the repetition of the wound, from reliving it, retelling it, reattaching your identity to it. You get stuck in a loop, convincing yourself that if you think it through long enough, it'll make sense. But the truth doesn't always come wrapped in logic. Sometimes, peace arrives not when you understand what happened, but when you stop needing to. We carry old pain like armor, but it doesn't protect us. It hardens us. It keeps us distant. We think we're learning from the past, but often we're just living inside it. Stoicism offers a different path. It invites you to create distance between the event and the interpretation, to pause before the story begins. That pause is power. That pause is freedom. Try this. When you feel pain rising, don't reach for the reason. Reach for the breath. Sit still. Don't answer the thought. Don't finish the sentence. Ask instead, what actually happened? Not what you felt, what occurred. Separate the facts from the feelings. You'll be surprised how much weight disappears when you stop holding your interpretation like it's the truth. You can still care deeply and not be controlled by every wave of emotion. You can be fully present and still let the moment pass without clinging to it. Pain may visit, but it doesn't have to unpack and live inside you. Meaning is a choice, and that means freedom is too. You don't control what happens, but you can train the mind that interprets it. You can teach it stillness, teach it space, and in that space you may realize life isn't against you. It's just happening, and your peace begins not when it changes, but when you do. 6. Emotions aren't truth. Your response is a wave crashes before you know it's coming. That's what emotions feel like. Sudden, loud, all-consuming. One sentence can ruin your day. One silence can shake your confidence. You feel it rise in your chest, tighten your jaw, blur your vision, and for a moment it feels true. It feels final. You act, not from reflection, but from reaction. And what was just a feeling becomes a choice. A word said too quickly, a bridge burned too soon. We grow up believing emotions are facts, that if we feel something deeply, it must mean something important. If we're angry, someone must have wronged us. If we're hurt, someone must be to blame. But Stoicism invites us to look closer. Emotions are real, but they are not reliable. They are not wise. They don't tell you what is, they tell you what it feels like in the moment. And those are not the same. Imagine sitting at your desk reading an email that seems off, cold, dismissive. Your heart speeds up, your thoughts fill in the blanks. They're mad, they don't respect you, they're pushing you out. But hours later, you find out they were dealing with a family emergency. The tone had nothing to do with you. Yet for half a day, your nervous system lived as if you were under attack. That's the power of unexamined emotion. It turns neutral moments into imagined threats. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." The Stoics didn't teach emotional suppression. They taught emotional clarity, to notice the wave but not be thrown by it, to create space between feeling and action. That space is where your power lives. That space is where self-respect is built. Most people don't pause. They don't breathe. They don't question the rush. They let the emotion drive and only regret the destination. They say what they don't mean. They act in ways that betray their values. They make permanent decisions based on temporary pain, not because they're weak, but because they never learned to separate what they feel from who they are. But that can change. You can start seeing emotions for what they are, signals, not orders. Data, not destiny. When anger rises, ask what value feels violated. When fear takes over, ask what outcome you're clinging to. When sadness sinks in, ask what you're still holding on to that needs to be released. Every emotion has a root, and every root can be examined with calm, not chaos. The goal is not to feel less, it's to feel wisely. To give yourself permission to experience emotion without making it your identity. You can be hurt and still respond with dignity. You can be afraid and still act with courage. You can be disappointed and still move forward with grace. Try this. The next time a strong emotion grabs you, say nothing. Do nothing. Step outside. Place your hand over your chest. Inhale, exhale. Then ask, is this feeling guiding me or gripping me? That one question can redirect your entire day. It pulls you back to presence. It reminds you that you are not the emotion, you are the observer of it. Stillness isn't apathy, it's mastery. You're not ignoring how you feel, you're refusing to let it dictate your character. Emotions will always visit, but whether they stay, whether they shape your actions, is up to you. Your strength isn't shown in how loudly you react, but in how quietly you choose. And sometimes, the calmest response is the most powerful one in the room. 7. Expectations are why you're unhappy. You wake up with a picture in your mind, how today should go, how they should treat you, how things should unfold. And when they don't, when people don't act the way you hoped, when results fall short of your silent standards, you feel it. That quiet disappointment, that tightening in your chest. You don't always name it, but it lives inside you. Expectations. And most of them, you didn't even say out loud. Expectation is a silent agreement we write in our heads and expect the world to sign. We assume fairness, timing, and acknowledgement. We build invisible scripts that no one else can read. But life isn't following your script. It's following its own. And the more tightly you grip how things should go, the more life feels like a betrayal. Picture this. A man spends years giving everything to his job. Long nights, missed weekends, sacrifices no one sees. He expects recognition, a promotion, a clear reward. But when someone else is chosen, something breaks. Not just his trust, but his story. Because in his version, effort equals reward. In reality, effort is only part of the equation, and the rest is out of his hands. Stoicism doesn't tell you to stop caring. It tells you to stop clinging, to stop assuming that effort guarantees outcome, that love guarantees reciprocation. Those plans guarantee peace. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are pained by external things, it is not they that disturb you, but your own judgment of them." In other words, your suffering doesn't come from reality. It comes from your refusal to accept it. People often say, "I just expected them to treat me the way I treated them." But that's not an expectation. That's a silent transaction, a form of control dressed up as kindness. The truth is, no one owes you your version of fairness. And the sooner you release that grip, the lighter you become. When you tie your peace to how others act or how quickly things happen, you give your emotional stability away. You become reactive, fragile. But when you detach from expectation, not from care but from control, You step into clarity. You respond with presence, not prediction. You see things for what they are, not for what you wish they'd be. Next time you catch yourself feeling let down, pause. Ask yourself, what was I expecting that didn't happen? Name it, own it, and then breathe it out. Shift from control to awareness, from blame to responsibility, from frustration to focus. You can still strive, still love, still give, but give without demanding return. Strive without demanding results. Love without demanding validation. That's not indifference. That's a strength. That's freedom. Try this. At the end of your day, write down one moment that disappointed you. Then write the expectation behind it. Now ask, was that expectation ever guaranteed? Or was it assumed? Let that gap sink in. Let that gap show you where your peace was lost and where it can be recovered. You'll find that much of your unhappiness isn't from what happened. It's from what you decided should have happened instead. Let that go. Let the world show up on its own terms. Let people be who they are, not who you scripted them to be. Freedom isn't getting everything you expect. It needs less from everything outside you. And from that place, you don't just survive disappointment. You stop depending on it never arriving. 8. Perfection is holding you back. You tell yourself you're just not ready yet, not ready to speak up, not ready to start, not ready to try. You wait for more time, more clarity, more confidence, but what you're really waiting for is perfection. A version of yourself that doesn't hesitate, doesn't fail, doesn't get judged, but that version doesn't exist. And while you chase it, life moves on without you. Perfection is a prison, a quiet one. It looks responsible, disciplined, even noble, but it's built on fear. Fear of failure, fear of being seen unfinished, fear of not being enough. It tells you to polish your thoughts before you speak, to rehearse life before you live it. And slowly it convinces you that the only safe move is not moving at all. In a quiet room, a man stares at a blank document. He's got ideas, insight, stories that could help others. But every time he types, he deletes. Not perfect, not sharp enough, not what he imagined. So the document stays blank. And with each passing day, the pressure builds. Not from the world, but from the voice inside that says, you're only allowed to begin when it's flawless. Stoicism cuts through that noise. It doesn't demand flawlessness. It asks for presence, for action, for truth. Epictetus wrote, how long are you going to wait before you demand the best of yourself? That's not perfection. It's participation. It's the courage to show up as you are, not as some polished version of who you wish you could be. The world doesn't need more perfect people. It needs more honest ones. People are willing to fail forward, to risk being misunderstood, to speak even when their voice shakes, to act even when the outcome is uncertain, because that's where growth happens. Not behind the scenes, but in the open, imperfect moments of real life. Perfection tells you to control everything. Stoicism tells you to control only what you can, your effort, your attitude, your response. You can't predict how others will see you. You can't perfect every outcome, but you can commit to the process. You can trade perfection for progress, and that trade will change everything. Start small. Speak the idea before it's ready. Press send before every word is flawless. Say yes before you're fully confident. Not recklessly, but willingly. Willingly unfinished. Willingly in progress. Willingly real. Because perfection is not the price of worth. Your presence is. Your participation is. Try this. At the end of the day, ask yourself, what did I avoid today because I didn't think I was ready? Write it down. Then take one step, however small, toward doing it anyway. Not to prove anything, just to break the habit of waiting. Perfection is clever. It promises safety, but it delivers regret. Regret for the things you didn't try, the words you didn't say, the work you never began. Don't let that be your story. Let your life be marked by courage, not caution, by effort, not delay. You don't need to be flawless to be valuable. You don't need to be certain to take the first step. All you need is the willingness to act and the strength to learn along the way. The world will adjust, you will adapt, and what once felt terrifying will become familiar. Perfection doesn't make you strong, action does. And the sooner you begin, the sooner you become. 9. Attachment isn't love, it's fear. You say you care. You say it's love, but deep down it feels more like panic. You hold on tighter when they pull away. You obsess when things feel uncertain. You call it loyalty, devotion, commitment, But if you're honest, it's not about connection. It's about control, about security, about not being left behind. Attachment looks like love from a distance, but the feeling is different. Love sets people free. Attachment tries to keep them close, even when it hurts. Love trusts, attachment clings. And while love gives space, attachment demands reassurance, over and over again. In the quiet moments of a relationship, a man waits anxiously for a reply. She hasn't responded in hours. His thoughts race. Maybe she's pulling away, maybe she's changing her mind, maybe he said too much. He rereads every message, tries to decode the silence. But what he's feeling isn't heartbreak, it's fear. Fear of loss, fear of not being enough, fear of being alone. And that fear drives him to act in ways that don't reflect his best self. Over-texting, over-explaining, trying to hold on tighter just to feel in control. Stoicism teaches something radically different. It doesn't tell you to love less. It tells you to love without possession. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Receive without pride, let go without attachment." The Stoic path is not cold or detached. It's clear. It invites you to give your heart fully, but without needing the world to shape itself around it. It's a kind of love that is rooted in self-trust, in the ability to stay whole even when things shift, in knowing that peace doesn't depend on who stays, but on how centered you are when they leave. Many people confuse needing someone with loving them, but needing says, "Without you, I'm not okay." Loving says, "With or without you, I remain grounded." The first creates dependency. The second creates space for real connection, because it's not based on fear. You don't need to stop loving. You need to stop losing yourself in the process. When you attach too tightly, you're not protecting love. You're suffocating it. You're replacing vulnerability with control. You're trading freedom for tension. And eventually, what could have been beautiful starts to feel heavy for both of you. It's hard to let go of attachment, especially when it's been your way of coping. But it begins with noticing. Ask yourself, do I love this person, or do I fear losing what they represent? Sometimes we hold on not because we truly want to stay, but because we're terrified of being without. Try this. The next time you feel anxious about someone's distance, pause. Don't reach for your phone. Don't fill the silence. Sit with the discomfort. Ask yourself, what am I afraid will happen if I let go just a little? Let the answer rise. Let it speak. Then remind yourself, you are still whole, even if things don't go your way. Attachment isn't a sign of depth, it's a sign of imbalance. And when you begin to release it, something shifts. You become lighter, calmer, clearer. You stop chasing and start choosing. You stop clinging and start connecting. True love doesn't say, stay so I can feel safe. It says, be free, and if you choose me, let it be real. That kind of love takes courage. It takes discipline. It takes a willingness to face yourself fully and realize that no one else is responsible for filling your emptiness. Peace begins when you stop gripping. And when you let go, not of people, but of the fear behind needing them, you give both yourself and others the space to breathe, to grow, and to love from a place of wholeness, not fear. 10. Freedom comes from needing less, not having more money, more time, more success. The chase never ends. You reach one goal and a new one appears. You upgrade your lifestyle, then feel like it's still not enough. You tell yourself it's ambition, but often it's not. It's fear of falling behind, fear of being seen as small, fear of what happens if you stop running. You've been taught that freedom comes from accumulation, more control, more comfort, more recognition. But what if that belief is the very thing that keeps you stuck? What if the pursuit of more is not a path to peace, but a barrier to it? Picture this. A man sits in a house he worked decades to afford. It's beautiful, spacious, full of things he once dreamed of. But inside he feels restless. He checks his phone, stocks, news, emails. He's always scanning, planning, adjusting. What he built never feels like it's enough, because the more he has, the more he fears losing it. Stoicism flips this story. It doesn't tell you to reject success or live in lack. It asks you to question your attachment to it, to examine the difference between possession and peace. Seneca wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." Need, not lack, is the thief of freedom. The more you believe you must have something to feel okay, the more power you give it over you. You don't own it, it owns you. Your energy shifts from living to maintaining, from creating to defending, from being present to staying afraid. When you reduce what you need, you expand what you can enjoy. A simple day becomes enough. A single connection holds more depth. Your presence becomes sharper, because you're no longer weighed down by everything you're afraid to lose. That doesn't mean you stop growing. It means you grow with awareness. You own things without letting them define you. You chase dreams without thinking they owe you wholeness. You stop measuring your life by how much you collect and start shaping it by how much peace you hold. Try this. Walk through your home slowly. Look at every item. Ask yourself, do I use this, or does it just make me feel more secure? Let that question guide what stays, not just in your space, but in your thoughts, your habits, your relationships. Let go of what's just noise. Keep what supports who you're becoming. You'll begin to notice how little you actually need to feel steady. How much pressure fades when you stop tying your worth to your possessions. How much mental clarity returns when you no longer chase what was never yours to control. Freedom is not the ability to get more, it's the strength to need less. To walk away, to be still, to enjoy what's already within your reach. When you stop feeding the hunger for more, you start feeling full in ways that accumulation never gave you. Let simplicity become your strength. Let enough become your power. Let the world keep chasing. You'll be the one who's already arrived. Not because you have everything, but because you finally stopped needing it. And in that stillness, you'll find something that more could never buy: yourself. Real change doesn't come from motivation. It comes from facing what's hard to admit. The truth is, many of us are trapped not by circumstances, but by habits of thought, by old emotional patterns, by stories we never questioned. The 10 uncomfortable truths you've just explored are not meant to shame you. They're meant to free you. Freedom starts the moment you stop running from discomfort and start walking toward clarity. That clarity comes from letting go of anger, of the need for control, of pride, of perfection, of unrealistic expectations, and of attachments that disguise themselves as love. It comes from learning to trust yourself again, to sit with emotion without obeying it, and to find peace and simplicity. The Stoics didn't just speak of wisdom, they practiced it every day, quietly, deliberately. And so can you. Start small. Notice one reaction today that doesn't align with who you want to be. Pause, reflect, respond with strength, not reflex. This is how you train your inner discipline. This is how you build mental resilience. Not by force, but by awareness. Remember, inner strength isn't loud, it's silent, but unshakable. You're not expected to master these truths overnight, but the more you return to them, the more you act from them, the lighter you'll feel. The clearer you'll see, the stronger you'll become. I invite you to share which of these truths hit you the hardest in the comments below. Share your story. Someone else might need to read it. And perhaps you'll see you were never alone on this path. Change begins in silence. Growth begins with truth. Start there and keep going.